When I first started this podcast, I was sharing my own experiments with momentum. Usually, in the last few minutes of an episode, I would share something personally or professionally that I was trying to change. And over the past couple of months, I've really just left those out and just focused each episode on a single concept or idea. But today's episode is coming directly from a current experiment that started a few days ago, and it's something I wanted to share because I think that it's not just important to me, I think it could be important to some other people. So maybe you'll recognize yourself. But essentially, this month, I have chosen to actively reset how I am consuming content. And this comes from noticing 5 red flags that I couldn't ignore. They'd been creeping up. I'd been noticing some patterns, but it did hit a point where I realized, oh, this is a problem and I need to make a change. So I'm going to share the 5 red flags, what I'm doing this month, and then also offering a challenge if you experience some of these red flags. I'll also make a couple of suggestions, not necessarily what I am doing fully, but maybe one or two things you could try. And then also, what does this mean for me as someone who creates content for other people? So that's all the stuff that we are going to cover in today's episode. And I just want to start off just getting into these red flags, and they all have to do with content consumption and how I was consuming content, not creating. Now, the first red flag, I call this balloon popping. For each red flag, I kind of came up with a title or just a nickname, mostly for me to be able to classify it. When I say balloon popping, I am referring to the impact when I have enjoyed something, whether that is a book that I read, a movie that I watched, a TV show. Usually it's something that I got immersed into that world. And then what happens is sometimes I'll search for information about it online. So if I've read a book or watched a movie or a show, often I will want to learn a little bit more behind the scenes. And that is coming from a place of excitement. Then I get online and the algorithm realizes I'm looking for this and it starts to feed me with people's hot takes, provocative opinions, maybe negative opinions about the thing. And then I'll see back and forth conversation. I'll see people fighting online about it. I get into the comments section, which you're not supposed to do, but because it's something that I've been immersed in, I can't help myself because we know negative, provocative, those things that gets people's attention, especially if it gets you emotional. And I am just as susceptible to those posts as well. So then what happens is by the time I sign off, I feel deflated. Like somebody just came and they just popped my balloon, this excitement I had, it just drains out of me. And even if I still like the thing, I am left with this bad taste in my mouth. I kind of wish that I hadn't seen everybody's hot takes and provocative opinions, and my mood is lowered. And sometimes I actually start to question my judgment. And I know not everyone agrees on artistic choices. You could love something, someone else could hate it. And I get that. But when you go online excited about something and then all these people are just crapping on it, it feels really bad. And so I would have this kind of just lowered mood, and I didn't feel good by the time I left. So that was the first one. The second of the red flags that I noticed is I am nicknaming it, "Do you even know me?" And this is when I would get into a pattern. This is primarily on YouTube. And so what would happen is I would be watching quite a bit of YouTube, and then I'd hit this wall where no matter what it showed me, nothing seemed interesting. I didn't want to click on any of the videos. I was kind of tired of their suggestions. And I would find myself actually saying out loud, like, "Do you even know me?" And this is a sign. Why is this a red flag? It's because the YouTube algorithm does know me, and it is serving up things that would normally be of interest to me. But it is a sign I have way overdone it. I have been probably watching too much. And when you start to learn about any kind of an addictive pattern, addictive behaviors, you know that there becomes these diminishing rewards where the same thing that was exciting before just doesn't really do it for you anymore. And you end up seeking more and more. You want something that's more interesting or more outrageous or something that's going to really pull you in. And this was a big sign that if there's nothing that interests me, it's actually this is a red flag that you've overdone it and that your brain is actually starting the brain chemistry is changing and you're just not interested in the things that normally interest you. And that is a real neurobiological shift. And so that to me is another red flag. Now, the third one, which seems like it's an opposition, and it can be, I call it lured into the rabbit hole. Now, full disclosure, I am a person who loves hyperfixate. Well, I hyperfixate. I love deep diving into a topic. I have always been that way. That is actually very quintessentially me, and it's how I've been wired my whole life. If I am into it, I'm really into it. And it might be these short bursts, but I will often deep dive something. I'll learn all about it. And that does mean that I tend to be susceptible to once I start learning about something or I'm really into something, then I will watch more and more. Now, the reason I bring this up, it's not that I have anything against my hyperfixations. It's that there are certain occasions. The red flag is when I am learning about something I genuinely want to make a change in my own life with, but I am, instead of doing the thing, I am watching other people do the thing. And there are some times in my life where it's true procrastination. It's just me avoiding doing the thing by learning about it, just saying, oh, I'll just watch one more thing, one more thing. But in this specific example, I noticed, and I'll share a recent one. So every, I don't know, 6 months or so, I start to get really into the idea of decluttering. And I think it's just usually cyclical where I just don't start to notice until a tipping point in my house where I say, oh, I really got to do something about this. And I have a few people that I really admire. I like their approaches. And so sometimes I will maybe put on a podcast or watch a video just to inspire me and get me into action. And recently that was happening. I went back to some of my favorite people. Dana K. White is a slob comes clean. Love her content, love her podcast. And usually just listening to an episode or watching a video will be enough to get me going. And I actually did recently start decluttering, donating things, selling things, and that's great. Except on a recent Saturday morning, while drinking a coffee, I was watching a video with the full intention that when I'm done my coffee, done the video, I'm just going to go keep at it. Instead, I ended up spending 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours, consuming more and more and more because the algorithm kept serving up things it knew I wanted to watch. And basically my brain, my attention got hijacked. And so I spent more time just wanting to see the next video. Oh, well, of course I want to watch a live example of how you clear out a room without actually making a big mess that you're left with later. And my morning's gone and I'm not doing the thing. Now, in this case, it wasn't procrastination. It was just that I was letting the algorithm pull me in and go down this rabbit hole and pull me away from what I actually want to be doing. I'll admit sometimes it's procrastination, but in this case, it was just this stuff just seemed too good and it was just hooking me. And then I was spending time watching other people do the thing I actually wanted to be doing. Now, the next one, I call this restless consumption. And I know I'm not alone with this because it is increasingly common for someone to not be able to get through watching a thing without doing something else or without a second screen. We know movies. People can barely get through movies anymore. Now, companies, especially the streamers, when they're working with producers, they will say, have action in the first few minutes, otherwise they won't pay attention. Make sure that you are repeating the plot over and over again throughout the movie because people aren't paying attention. We know people don't have sustained attention anymore, and it's changing how people make content, but also even half-hour shows, I can't really just sit still during it. I will find maybe I'm pulling up my phone, maybe I start doing the New York Times puzzles or something while that's on, and I really do struggle to just sit still and consume something. And I know that that is a sign that my attention is, just like many of us, suffering. And that was a red flag. I don't like this. And I know a lot of people have it, but I definitely was starting to notice that this was an issue as well. I just could not sit through one thing at a time. Now, reading a great fiction novel, I'm still pretty good at that. The last one, this is what I'm calling irrational impatience. And this one is actually, I think, what tipped me over the edge of saying, okay, something's really got to change here. I was getting angry at the inability to speed up videos. Now, let me backtrack. For a very long time, I would listen to podcasts probably a little bit like 1.2, 1.25, just a little bit faster. And I thought to myself, okay, that's not an issue. Although anytime I heard it at 1x, if I heard, let's say they have a little intro song for the podcast, I'd say, oh, is this the actual speed of the podcast? Or hearing people talk and think, oh, is this how slow they actually talk? So I did recognize that, yes, listening to things a little bit faster when I actually do listen at 1x, it definitely felt slower. However, progressively over the last, I'd say 5 months, 6 months, I've gotten less patient. I've started watching things at 1.5, 1.75. And because of the 2x on Instagram, so on a reel, you can tap the side of the screen and you can watch a reel on 2 times speed. So if somebody is a bit of a slower talker naturally, I would just hold it down and watch it. But even sometimes if someone was a quick talker, I would watch at 2x and it's very aggressive, but I would get through more and I get through them faster. And I specifically recall before Instagram released this, I had a friend who told me, TikTok, you can 2x it. And so I can barely get through Instagram because I can't speed it up. And I remember thinking, oh, that's kind of a sad statement. And then it happened to me where the exact same thing was going on because now suddenly I could 2x these reels. I could get through them really quickly. Now, anytime I couldn't speed up something, I was getting really upset by it and feeling also that really, really restless feeling. So watching a story on Instagram, which presumably I'm following this person, why can't I just listen to them tell a story? When I would see how long it was taking, I was like, I don't know if I can, I don't know if I have patience for this. And then the kicker and the thing that really got me was YouTube Shorts. So I actually not a huge YouTube Shorts person, but more and more I would notice that they're serving up more shorts than ever. But on my phone, I would try to speed up the short and I couldn't. And I am embarrassed to say how many times I would, this whole definition of insanity, I would try just maybe there's a secret place on the screen that you can tap and it'll actually make it go faster because I had tried tapping every single icon, every menu item, and I could not get these things to speed up. And I was getting irrationally angry. It's just unwarranted how mad I was getting that I couldn't speed up a short. By the way, it's a short. But because I had now gotten used to speeding up everything, this was becoming the norm for me and I could not tolerate 1x. And I was getting mad. And I think I was actually getting mad like audibly. But the other thing is that I was starting to miss the whole point. I was so fixated on how do I get through this faster that I wasn't hearing anything they were actually saying. And then if I did want to consume it, I would have to go back and watch it over. And then I was watching it at 1x and then I was feeling angry about it. It's not rational, but my brain had changed. And all of these together said, whoa, you need to do something about this. And so that's what I did. I realized, especially towards the end of last month, I need to do something different. So my experiment for the month of March is resetting consumption, consuming other people's content. I have removed social media apps from my phone. I am going to stay off of the feeds. So no Instagram, no LinkedIn feeds. I can still DM in LinkedIn. I also am going to greatly reduce YouTube viewing, like greatly, dramatically. No more just opening it to browse to see what's up. If I want to learn something, or maybe I want to watch the trailer of an upcoming movie or something, I can go and search out a specific video, watch that, and then get off. But even then, it's risky because I will start to see things that it's recommending for me. And what I should probably do is just sign out of all the YouTube accounts that I have. And then that way, when it pops up, the algorithm won't be luring me in. The other thing I am going to do is to take a 2-week break from recording this podcast. Now that's partly, it just coincides nicely with scaling everything back, slowing way, way down. But also my birthday's coming up and I want to take a little break for my birthday. So it's not totally about this experiment. The other thing is that I want to spend more time with sort of slower consumption, so more time reading nonfiction books, and more time doing things like piano lessons, which I was on a bit of a roll and then I kind of paused again. So I'm picking that back up again. I've been learning Japanese for over a year and I want to spend a little bit more time being mindful and also not just using kind of app-based learning, but also sit down with, I have a Japanese textbook from when I took a class at the local college. So just kind of a slower way to learn things, to be creative, more writing. And I'm also carrying around a little notebook that I got. So it's just thin, it's just a little bit bigger than my phone. And I carry this with me throughout the day so that if I get an idea, maybe I want to look something up, I will just write it down there instead of my default, which is as soon as I think of something, I need to take action on it. I'm trying to just really, really, really slow and reset, I guess, kind of my nervous system, but also my patience. And I do want to give a quick shout out to my friend Joe Casabona, who has been this year, especially, really scaling back his digital world and doing more hands on, more analog things. And he has been a source of inspiration for doing these kinds of things. He's completely off a number of the social media apps, just gone. I think he's still on LinkedIn, but he has also been sharing on, he's got a Substack where he's sharing what he's doing, what he's learning about trying to embrace more hands-on, more analog, less reliance on the phone, and just some of the changes he's making. One of the things I want to share is just some early observations. I'm on day 4 of this experiment. And I noticed a couple days ago during my piano lessons, I really wanted to speed it up. I felt bored during the lesson. I was like, this is going slow. And my brain was saying, oh, this feels so tedious. This feels so slow. And I wrote it down in my little notebook. That's an observation that I was struggling to get through it. And I just pushed myself, just get through this. Sometimes you're not going to necessarily enjoy a lesson or something like that. Sometimes you might feel frustration. Just go with it and sit there. The other thing is that I watched the show Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. It's a show I like. And I was originally watching it while I was eating a meal. But when the meal was done, I could not just sit and only watch. I noticed I did grab for my phone and then I was distracted and I did not fully capture it. So yesterday, when I decided to watch a show, one of the things I did is I made sure I could not see my phone, but I also have around the house these little things. They are, this is my mini one that I keep at my desk if I'm on a Zoom call, because then I can just squeeze it so that I'm just listening to a person, but I'm doing something with my hand. I have one of these near my TV and I was using that and I actually was able to get through the entire show by just kind of having something to do with my hand. But I am noticing how uncomfortable it is to just sit and consume something. And those are just some initial reactions that I have had. And the other piece, so I mentioned a challenge. So if anything I have said to you feels familiar, especially speeding everything up, consuming multiple things at a time, I'm going to encourage you to try, it's like just a 1x challenge, meaning try, if you always speed things up, just try consuming at the regular speed, whether that's a podcast, an audiobook, or a video, and only one thing at a time. And if you need to, maybe grab one of these guys. They're pretty great. Something you can have in your hand if you feel the need to reach for something else. And then also the other thing I'll say is if you tend to rabbit hole, then it's one video for a topic. So if you are going to learn about something, maybe do a little research and just find, is there a credible video or is there one person I trust? And I'm just going to watch one video on this today. If tomorrow I realize I still want to learn more, I can go back. But instead of just watching, one video, I often will just watch 10. And if I watch 2, why wouldn't I watch 3? So just saying one video for a topic and then just stopping there for the day. It's really, for me, I think I'm trying to reconnect with my patience because that is the biggest thing that has been impacted. And now I can't seem to put this thing down. So I'm just going to put this away. And it's about recognizing diminishing returns and that watching 10 videos that I'm just not getting that much. By the time you've watched a few on a certain topic, you're probably starting to hear a lot of the same things. It's rare to get a lot of different things. Now, finally, I want to share what this means for me as a person who creates content, because clearly this is a departure. I said that I have, you know, separated from or separated from, I am not on social media feeds, etc. Now, I have talked about experimenting with Instagram. I've been very inconsistent with Instagram. And I do think there is a part of me that has always struggled because I know the impacts of short form content on your brain and that it can make people less patient. It can ruin people's attention spans. The fact that we can't get through a movie anymore because we're so used to these quick hits and quick things and just go, go, go. And what does that mean if I'm someone who is contributing to that? So I am going to be over these next few weeks taking times to reflect on where does content fit. Now, I think things like podcasts, I still listen to podcasts, by the way, during this experiment. I am listening to them on 1X. And yes, it is it is not easy. Sometimes I just want to speed it up. But I am noticing that, longer form content, there's more room for nuance, there's more room to think about things. I am not against that. I actually really like that as a tool. I like long form content, YouTube, podcasts, etc. But when it comes to short form, I really I really want to think hard about that and where does this fit for me? And what are the considerations? Knowing what it does to people's brains, it's really hard for me to connect that or disconnect that. It'd be a lot of cognitive dissonance. It's a lot of making concessions of saying, well, I know that it's not good for the consumer, but it might be good for me and my business. Well, what's going on there? So I'm not judging people, by the way, who are using it. I'm just for myself personally, what does this mean? And I do know that from a business standpoint, as a person who, I consider myself an educator, content has been a part of my business, but I feel very strongly that I would like to have a sustainable business that does not rely or is not dependent on social media to be successful. That I can run a business the traditional way through relationships, networking, referrals, speaking to audiences as a way that I can get my message out there, I can educate, but that the performance of content is not going to determine at the end of the day whether I can pay my mortgage. And I am keeping the podcast, in case that was a question at all. I really do think podcasts are a great avenue for sharing information. But these are all things that are going on through my mind. I will admit I feel a little embarrassed when I describe some of the things I've been struggling with, and especially the irrational impatience. That is not a side of me I like seeing. And I know that it also might surprise some people who have trouble picturing me maybe yelling at a phone or getting mad at an algorithm or getting mad that I can't do something. That might not necessarily jive in your brain with what you know of me, but it's very and that is not how I want to be. That is very much a result of compounding impacts of how technology is interacting with my brain. And I think it's really important to take care of yourself, to take care of your mood, to take care of your well being. All of those things were being impacted with the way I was consuming content for a while. And so I'm going to see how this goes. I will share more when after a few weeks, and maybe that'll be the next episode, maybe it'll be in a couple episodes back, but I will share sort of what I've learned. In the meantime, I would love to hear from you, whether that's in the comments or sending me a direct message. But have you noticed this? Have you made any changes? Are there things that you've really appreciated that have made a positive impact? And also, if you try your own experiment, I'd love to hear how that goes, because ultimately, I want to spend more intentional time on the things that really matter to me, the pursuits that matter to me, and protect my brain, my attention, and just not let it be hijacked by a bunch of companies that, frankly, their success depends on the deterioration of our attention. That's not cool. And I wanna make some changes. So that's my experiment. I will circle back. In the meantime, I wish you good luck with your momentum.